Welcome, everybody, to the Zion Experience. I'm Jim Shaw. I forget Jordan. Jordan Frank, the other co-host, is on.
I'm here.
You know, we really don't prepare for this.
You know, we're better off to come. About all you're going to get. Yeah, that's what I got.
I have ham and cheese loaf in the refrigerator for days like today.
With that, let's get back into it.
Let's get in our groove.
I'm going to lose power.
Uh-oh.
You're all good. You're all good. While Lee's finding power here, our guests that we're going to introduce here in a minute, we want to welcome you to another episode of the Zion Experience, or the TZE as we call it. We got a special guest here. We called him. He's works at a 3PL, and he was doing some really heavy duty 3PL work as we're getting up for this podcast. So we've delayed the recording just a little bit. So bear with us, listeners, if you're on the video watching. If you're listening, you don't know any of this is happening, so just ignore it altogether. But we're back with another 3PL campaign episode. So we've been running through several of these over the last few weeks and months, and really been a theme we're planning on, or we're working on. And so today is going to be how Zion plans to help 3PLs for the future, how we help them prepare for the future. So we got one of our newer customers, but one of our favorite guys to talk to. We've really been on a journey with Lee and NXTPoint Logistics, and I want to introduce Lee to you, and then if I missed anything, Lee, you can fill in the blanks. But Lee's an accomplished global supply chain executive. He's been in the industry almost 3 decades, or almost over 3 decades. So we've kind of got similar paths there, Lee. I think I'm at 27. You're at 29.
Yeah.
You've provided leadership in manufacturing, transportation, e-commerce, and 3PL operations. You're currently the COO, or Chief Operating Officer, at NXTPoint Logistics, where you lead daily operations, strategy development, and client engagement to just drive performance and efficiency. You've held key leadership roles at a whole slew of other 3PLs, so we'll go through them. I think you've hit all the big ones. Well, we might have missed one, right? Maybe NFI or a couple, but SEVA,
Fortunately,
GXO,
unfortunately, yes.
Yeah, SEVA, GXO, ODW, Radial, and Geodis. So you just bring a unique perspective to both the provider side and the client side of this industry, we feel like. And you're known for leveraging automation, doing more lean principles, continuous improvement. You just are looking to always reduce cost, enhance your customer's experience, and just strengthen ESG outcomes. You hold a degree from Stephen F. Austin State University, and you've led operations in, I didn't know this, in Asia, Europe, and the Americas. So,
Yeah.
Lee, what did I miss, man? That's a pretty impressive background and bio.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I don't think you missed anything. Allegedly, that's all true. No, it is. It is. But no, it's been a great journey. And yeah, this is, I guess, my 30th year, actually. It started this year, coming into January, started my 30th year into this, into the manufacturing and supply chain world. So looking forward to the conversation. You know, you got a great team at Zion, and have we've worked together on several projects in the past and current. And so just looking forward to the conversation to talk about how this 3PL journey that we're all undertaking is going.
Yeah. I think I'm going to go off script immediately before I go into the first question, Lee.
All
I know
right.
we're going to go into it, but I think one of the things we enjoy about the 3PL industry is that people move around, and ultimately the leadership levels and what we've got as what we've got at systems integrators is we form these good, deep relationships with people that you work with, you've been in the trenches with, you've worked on some really hard stuff, because we joke a little bit about it. It's like, this work is not easy. It's hard work, and it's changing every day. It's never the same one. But getting to work with people like yourself and having conversations with you on this, thank you for joining us, is, that's been one of the pleasures of my 3 decades. I'm 27 years. I just rounded up of 3 decades of working in this industry, of the people you get to work with and interact with. They may have a different logo on their shirt at some point, but man, that's what brought us back together. So we've worked together in the past. you moved on, had an excellent opportunity in front of you with NXTPoint Logistics. You're doing a fabulous thing there. And so it just brought us back together. And, I think that's unique about our industry. So we talk about it a lot, but relationships really matter. And we're grateful you took some time to meet with us and give us a chance to help you in your new role. So off
Yeah,
the script.
appreciate it.
Yeah, back on the script. So
Yeah.
working first question, we just wanted to really tee up and we'll bounce around, see how the conversation goes, Lee. But what makes working in a 3PL unique if you compare it to other supply chain environments? For instance, a manufacturing or, retail world, if you're working at a Home Depot or if you're actually making the product that 3PLs are storing, sometimes they're blended. I think
Yeah.
next got a little uniqueness in that you're kind of touching both sides of that, but 3PL, if you just kind of stand alone, a traditional 3PL comparing it to a traditional manufacturer, what's unique about 3PLs in your opinion?
Yeah, so fortunately, I've had the opportunity to work in both the manufacturing environment with from my Dell days and before that in contract manufacturing, doing some fairly technical work around custom wiring harnesses, cable assemblies, those things for the semiconductor industry out of Austin. So, those were all heavily engineered manufacturing environments. And then when Dell was into the outsource mode of manufacturing, that's when I ventured into the 3PL world. And really have spent the last 20 years of my career in that area, and that the thing that's very different from a manufacturing versus a 3PL environment is manufacturing. You're focused on your product, right? That is your offering to the market. It is very specific. There can be challenges with supply disruptions or new designs or customer demands on that, but it's very specific to your customer or to your product that you're offering versus in a 3PL environment. Our core competency is supply chain management. Our core competency is fulfillment, and those types of services. And it touches every type of business or industry, whether that's a pharmaceutical, whether that's food grade, whether that's e-commerce for apparel, or it could be in the technology, back in the technology business. If you get into fulfillment of computing or those types of things, or reverse logistics and repair and all that. So that it's a ever evolving and changing environment on the 3PL side versus the manufacturing side, and the types of products that you're handling and dealing. So you have to become an expert in a lot of different areas versus your specific products. Same thing versus a retail environment. You're fulfilling your products through a retail channel. You typically have your set product offerings and those things. The other thing is and I touched on this briefly, was the level of knowledge you have to develop across the multiple industries is very unique in this environment, because a pharmaceutical fulfillment center versus a electronics manufacturing fulfillment center are two completely different environments. Versus I'm going into bulk retail, whether it's food goods or shoes or those types of things, and so it's always interesting. And I find it always intriguing, the local regulations and the knowledge. Today we deal a ton with tariffs and bonded warehouses, FTZ warehouses, to develop that knowledge to help our customers out. So that's really the differences. Is our core competency is flexibility, agility, being able to become experts with our customers in their industry, versus being an expert in just a specific industry. And that really makes it an interesting environment to always be in.
Yeah, I think that's some good insight. So if you transition into, if you go in, let's dig into the 3PL side, and just between you and Jordan, just kind of what are you all seeing? We've been working on a few projects together. What are some of the biggest challenges that you think 3PLs in 2025 are facing, or really, and since we've turned post COVID, like what challenges do you see out there for 3PLs?
Yeah, and today's macroeconomic environment where we've got the tariffs that are coming and going on a regular basis, it's a real time adjustment. Some clients are more impacted than others, so it's really having those capabilities from whether that's a bonded warehouse, an FTZ warehouse, whether you do different things with them, because you can share best practices from some clients that you have with other clients to help them reduce their spend or delay spend on certain fees and costs to help them financially. So that's one of the challenges we see is how do we support our clients in that manner. The other piece is with some specifically on the projects that we're working with Jordan and team on, are around how do we solution the best thing, one, for our customer, from a capabilities and a growth standpoint, because we're looking at projects that are multiple years out, 10 plus years out, from a scope standpoint, with specific customers. And then we're also looking at things that are just our growth initiatives that we have as another project we're working on with the team, around how do we get synergies within our own footprint, with combining like customers or combining like fulfillment models and those things to drive those. So that's something within our own model that we're driving, because that allows us to offer a higher quality, higher service at typically an improved price point. We're not always trying to be the lowest price. We're trying to be the highest quality and the highest service level delivery that's out there with the most flexibility, because that gives customers the ability to customize their models into their customers and into their clients. So that's really some of the uniqueness there on that piece of it. And what the challenges we face is that those different competing models out there.
Yeah. I mean, I would piggyback off of that. I mean, I think our theme has been similar for a few years now, and it's the challenge of, to go back to what Lee was saying, kind of being an expert around all the different types of industries and verticals. There's technology that everyone wants, and that technology, while scalable, still has time to get it to be scalable. And what I mean by that is, when we're looking out at a 5-year contract with maybe a 2-year renewal, or a 7-year contract that goes out to 10 years, one thing that we're always thinking about is, we know, I think more so today than ever, business can change quickly. It can either increase or it can decrease. And historically, the nice thing around people is that you can go out and you can get people, you can add them in a pinch. Technology, you can't quite do that. So this has been a challenge for a long time, and one that we work closely with our 3PL partners to understand how much automation they really want, how much automation they really need. And we find ourselves challenging each other on the right level of automation, plus some sort of manual overflow, to allow both the scaling up and scaling down of some of these businesses. Because you're looking out 7 to 10 years, yeah, you can look at phasing in automation, but that doesn't mean that when you say, okay, I'm ready for phase 2, that it's ready tomorrow. When you're ready for phase 2, it still could be 6, 9, 12, 18 months in the future before you're going to start getting any beneficial use of that additional automation. So it's always a challenge. We take the approach of being somewhat conservative on the design of the automation, but at the same point in time, being somewhat aggressive on how to lower the initial capital cost, because we don't want our customers to end up paying for something that they're not using. And that's just constantly a challenge with all 3PLs. When we work with an end user, going back to why are 3PLs unique, when we work with a brand or an end user, they may plan to be in that facility for the next 15 to 20 years. It's okay for them to overinvest a little bit, because they're going to get use of it over time. A 3PL, on the other hand, if they design a system and that client leaves, they don't realize the growth, they still have that capital, it's a tough pill to swallow. So that's been the theme. I think it continues to be the theme. I think, working with Lee, we've come up with some pretty creative ideas of how to properly phase, how to properly, take on the right level of risk. But it continues, and I think will continue to be a theme that we're seeing specific to 3PLs.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's important, is that flexibility that Jordan referenced there, that, there's typically a significant investment on the front end from a capital standpoint, when it comes to automation. And part of the thing we try to challenge customers with, and our internal groups with, is don't get distracted by the shiny new object. Let's make sure that it meets the long-term flexibility goals, because our clients do come and go. We actually have a near 100% retention rate, and that just goes to show the service level and the partnerships, more than just a vendor customer relationship that we build. But even with that retention, you've got new customers that are coming on board, and you want to be able to utilize investments to scale that capital. So having flexible, scalable investments is critical on this piece of it, and that means you've got to look at multiple types of solutions, whether, as Jordan mentioned, some manual areas on certain things, but having the ability from different types of robotics and AGVs and AMRs, those things to be able to have that flexibility for long-term scale.
Yeah, I think y'all both hit on it. It really dovetails into some of the next questions we want to go in. Lee, we took a road trip last week. We were in Oklahoma and Texas, myself and the director of business development, and we got a podcast we'll be releasing, or has already been released on it. And I've this is all I've ever done. I don't know if I've shared mine. You and I've talked, but I grew up on the concrete with UPS Supply Chain Solutions. Yep. I started there at the Air Hub and spent most of my career before I became in system integration in the 3PL world. And we were trying to solve the problem. Like you love, it was funny. I was walking a 1.5 million square foot facility in Texas, and they had a bulk storage client that took up 500,000 to 750,000 square feet. And wow. I'm like, I love those. Like those are set like 3 high stacked. You could do it. 3 high to 4 high pallet stacks. The same thing as putting in very narrow aisle racking. And they signed up for they're signing up for a decent contract. And I'm like, I loved those back when I was supporting 3PLs and doing the engineering and solution on it.
Right.
But there's such a diverse mix of what comes in, and I try to keep things simple. We shared this on the last one, is like the 3PL game is how do you maximize your space, because that's what you're providing. How do you maximize and have the most efficient labor, because that's what you're providing. And then usually space you're providing, right? Sometimes people want to own their own facilities and lease it back, but most of the time you're trying to optimize. You're taking the risk on space and how you sell into it and get it paid for. And then the systems was always kind of the systems, meaning both the software and the mechanical automation systems that you put in were always the ones of how do you challenge, how do you get through those. And if we were talking about, you'll appreciate this, is every 3PL is always looking for that the golden veil or the golden WMS and the next one, and this is going to be the one that works for us, and we got a customer that's on a legacy one, or I'm about to upgrade and I'm going to the next one. So it was a fun walk back. That one of the questions was asked is like, well, how much has changed? And I'm like, the facilities are nicer, but the core of what you do and the challenges are still there. They've manifested themselves in different scales now because the world's just getting more complicated every day, supply chains. But it was pretty cool. So on this theme, strategic automation. So there's a time and place for the flexibility that Jordan talked about, having the ability to react to the customer and the contracts that you've got. Where, in your view, do you see opportunities for strategic automation and how you can help address customers' challenges? What are some of maybe the ingredients where, okay, now it makes sense to let's put in some strategic automation?
Yeah, I think it starts a step back from where the automation discussion happens, and it's the data, evaluating the data aspects of what their volumes are currently, have been historically, seeing the trends on not just carton size and units per order and those things, but the pure volume and the growth aspects of what they've experienced as a customer, and then how the projections that they see in the future. I mean, data on those decisions is so critical, and we know that data is challenging for all organizations. You think about AI and you think about data pools and lakes and everything that's come through over the last, whatever it is, 5-7+ years on that piece of it. So understanding the data and having a good feel and connection with your customer, with how their plans for marketing and growth are going forward, helps you bring that information in and a level of confidence to model different solutions for them. So I think that's where you start that analytical process, is by looking at that data component of it, because a client may be a high volume client, and they may have a 15-20% growth factor, which is very significant. High volume means one thing to somebody and means something completely different to somebody else, right? So that's always a relative comment, but something that would typically warrant automation, based off the product profile, may not warrant automation. And the best way to do it is have cart and flow racks with a slapper type line where you're throwing it on there and it goes down to a pallet area where, you've got very little automation on things like that versus e-coms where you're trying to pick eaches and those things. So it's that data component of it. It's the modeling of the product profiles and then understanding what the growth expectations are. If a client's got 5,000 SKUs today and in 2 years they're going to have 10,000 SKUs and in 5 years they're going to have 60,000 SKUs, that impacts your decisions as well. So those are really the things we partner with organizations like like Zion, with the integration aspects up on helping us design, because the strong thing about, and to give Jordan some props here, it's the strong thing about the exposure Jordan mentioned. The same thing we experience is that across multiple industries gives him the ability to bring best practices from multiple industries into whatever the project we're talking about are. But he's also got the ability to bring his exposure to the different types of automation options that are out there are far greater than what we would have as a 3PL, because we just don't have that level of exposure, right? We go and work on a project, and that project is whatever that project is, but then we turn around and implement that, and that's our exposure to it, right? We investigate 5 different types of automation to do one thing, settle on one with us, with the integrator, with a Zion, with the integration components with our customers, and then we implement that, and we go about our happy way, hopefully, that everything went smoothly. Versus we wouldn't have known to go look at 5 different technologies. We would have looked at 1 or 2 or 3 maximum. And that's where the value of these relationships come in. So the data in the beginning helps us go down a path to understand if we want to start that investigation and discussion. And then once we determine that's the value, then we bring in the expertise of a Zion and stuff to help us down that path.
Yeah, I think one of the things that our team really enjoys doing is looking for ways to use proven technology in new ways while still maintaining their core software and their core product. And what I mean by that is, if you go out and you're Googling something and trying to figure out how to do something, you're always going to see the standard approach of how they handle it. And then you may think, well, I need to do it a little bit different. And you think, well, that might be custom, or that group might not be able to handle it. Well, one thing that we really focus on is you spend a lot of time to understand all of our technology partners. And as an example, if we've got a racks to person technology and we have an opportunity to do a pallet to person technology, there's really no difference. We can use the same robots, we can use the same software. We're still picking, we're still dropping, we're still building things, but we're able to use technology in ways that gives them additional value. So I think when it comes to some of the strategic initiatives, everyone's process is a little bit different. Yeah, there's some similarities, there's some commonalities, but how do we address the specific problem at hand without creating something brand new and making our customers the beta? Because that's always scary, especially for a 3PL, because you don't have the time to figure out what's going wrong. The expectation is as it goes in day one, your customers be like, Lee, this better be working day one. It might give you a little bit of time to ramp up, but that's it. And then after that, it's on your shoulders. It's your problem to fix. So I think that's a neat thing that we get to do. And I think the other thing, I've done a couple of seminars just teaching the trade around automation. And automation, just like volume, means something different to everybody. It might mean for somebody that it's conveyor, to your point. It might be a print and apply. It might be an AMR. And to others, it might be goods to person technologies, or it might be ASRS systems, whatever it may be. But I think, one thing that 3PLs have to consider is, do they have any automation today? Do they know how to run the automation? Does anyone on their team have experience with it? And if they don't, they got to make sure they've got a really good plan if they're bringing up a highly automated facility, or it might make sense to look at some of their existing facilities and automate some small parts just so the team can start to understand some of the nuances. So I think all those things are certainly challenges, but to your point, Lee, we do have a lot of exposure. We've certainly had some bumps in the road through some integrations and some post go live support and we always want to leave our customers in a place where they're happy with the system, and we'll get them there. But all those problems that we solved in the past hopefully don't become problems in the future. That's the goal, right? So
Right.
I agree with you just on the exposure and bringing that all together.
Yeah, I think it the automation is what it is, and running that automation long term. It comes back to Jim, where you had mentioned the WMS and what's the latest and greatest and the magic quadrant or whatever that happens to be. But it's around that data management and having the knowledge of how what you have implemented, the flexibility within that, and how you can change how it functions by using your WMS, by using your data, and those things to drive that improvement and flexibility.
For sure. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Y'all are hitting on a lot of stuff that's near and dear. I think the easiest part of some of this is I shouldn't say the easiest part. There's really a tough part in terms of going from blank sheet to greenfield and the creativity that it requires to get to that point. I think Zion, hopefully you've experienced this, Lee, is like I've worked around it my entire life. I'm not blessed with that. That's not my blessing in life. Jordan and his team, they're blessed with being able to look at the blank sheet and come up with it and come up with unique ways to fill the puzzle out and complete it, right, and come up with what the solution needs to look like. And then I think it's once that's there, it's like it's easy to put the pieces together and put the PowerPoint together and say it's going to work and massage the data to where you feel good about it. But there's a whole other element of being in the trenches to get through that J curve, that implementation. And that's where my specialties come in. And I don't get to do it much anymore, but it's like it feels on fire, but it's really not. It's tweaking in. It's something new. You didn't have the owner's manual. You don't have a technical specification. The software is super scary because you can't see it and touch it and feel it, and everybody wants to blame it. And maybe it's some combination of a sticker's in the wrong place and a scanner's out of whack and a photo eye's not working. And software sending it to the wrong destination, but it's that combination of all of it. So having people on boots on the ground, a trusted advisor that can walk you through that is the difference in why some companies are successful with automation and some you hear the horror stories of you hear the horror stories about it's just, man, it was not good. It didn't go well. So it's hard to encapsulate that when we're working with customers unless you have that relationship and that tie-in, because everybody's got a pretty PowerPoint.
Yep.
The bigger the brand, the easier it is to put that PowerPoint in front of you, right? But the real work's done in the trenches and in the details of the design and in the details of the functional specification of the software and of the getting through that first six, hopefully it's less than 6 months, but been my experience. You may have a different experience. When I call automated, I talk the big systems, right? The
Right.
fully integrated, you turn it on, it's got to work systems. So anyway.
Yeah, it is, right, and a lot of that comes to selecting the right partners on the front end from an automation partner to help with the aspects on selection, but also on the back end customers, having the right customer management approach and mentality, because customers can also impact the success or lack of, or the time to ramp of an automated solution. So, I think I've been on both sides of the fence where things turned on and went great, and I've been on the other side where things turned on and we're looking for who's going to get, held accountable for what was installed, in week 2, which is probably not the way to go. Right. It's something that you got to have that understanding. You got to have that conversation in advance with customers and with the teams.
Absolutely.
And you've got to have those conference room pilots, and you've got to have an understanding and education before anything's ever turned on or bolts put in the floor or new chargers are put in or anything. Right. And it's laying out those expectations that there will be bumps in the road. But that's why we've got all these experts here together so that you've got support. Don't try to conquer the hill on your own. That's why we're all here. Let's go and raise your hand if you need help, if you see something that's not right, and let's get together as a team and solve those problems. And so I think it's as much the solution you pick, the data you're using, the prep work you do, and then the relationships you have across the different engagements there, from customer to 3PL to the integration and automation selection.
You nailed one of my favorites, is the customer expectations and maintaining them. And you've been in this long enough that if you build it for a certain speed and you build it to how a certain product density type, and then you introduce a brand new line, we've got one like that, and the SKU mix totally changes, and you decide to go from one type of apparel to another type of apparel, and then you expect the same system to work. Those are just things that happen during the education process with the customer. Doesn't mean you can't change, you can't plan. Jordan's really, you all are usually really good about this in terms of asking those questions. And we call it looking around the corner of what if this product line takes off and you add another product line? What if your growth comes from this? What if the Omni takes it? If you're an Omni channel, what if your retail stores drop off and now your e-com picks up? Those are all things that are on the table when you can't solve them all, but you can talk about them. You can set expectations on them. Sounds like you've done that. And because when it goes wrong is you leave those voids open and you don't talk about it. And then you get in the middle of it, and there's people, just like you all said, people think differently when they hear the word automation. Well, I thought it was going to do, well, no, it can't. If you design a car to run 100 miles an hour and you need it 110 miles an hour, guess what? You got to make some changes to it. Now, maybe you can upgrade the engine, maybe you can't, but the car was designed to do 100 miles an hour. So
that's right.
Well, I think it all comes back to that flexibility we talked about earlier. I mean, flexibility has some level of cost. And the more flexible you get, typically the more costs you're going to incur. So you have to find that right balance. I mean, to your point of like your different product lines, if order profiles suddenly change, does your tote volume, order volume, carton volume, does that shift with it? Is your unit volume decreasing? Is your SKU count increasing? So when you're building these solutions, there is a fine line between being too flexible where your cost kind of balloons, but there is a level of flexibility you want to maintain. That's kind of that middle mark. It might cost more than if you were to do a purpose-built solution on all the historical data, but it's certainly not going to cost as much as being able to solve anything and everything. So we usually find that happy medium in conversations with our customers, but it becomes important to make sure that if you do introduce that new line, if you do have an order profile change, that your system's able to adapt to those changes. And that's more important for 3PLs than anybody, because typically, once again, brands and customers, they kind of have some forecasts going on. They've got some strategic initiatives. They kind of have time to plan for it. But who gets told last is usually a 3PL that has to distribute the volume. And they really don't get asked their opinion either a lot of times. It's just, hey, by the way, next month you're going to see this. Oh,
that's
okay,
right.
well, we better start preparing. So, yeah.
Oh, by the way.
You're right. That's right.
Well, I'll hit this, and we're getting close to wrapping up, you all. But there was just an example in a walkthrough we did recently where a more manual operation took place. I had somebody just walk in real quick, but a more manual operation was put in place on the inbound. And corporate decided to change their inventory strategy. They wanted less inventory in their fulfillment centers. And so they were sending in, instead of full pallets inbound with inventory, they were sending in mixed pallets of inventory. And so this is more of a manual replenishment. You can just see where this is going, both of you. Like it was a full case put away to a replenishment to a carton flow. Well, what do you think sending in a mixed pallet with a smaller minimal order quantity does to the operation? Well, now I've got a sort and seg on the dock, and guess what? I didn't have space for it. And so it's just interesting. If you've done it long enough, to ask the questions. You can't plan for everything. There is a true cost of flexibility, and I love the conversation, Lee. You've been there, done it. So we we've appreciated having you on. Would there be anything else you'd add? I'm going to ask you a fun question if I get to it here in a minute and make you think a little bit. You don't get to cheat and look ahead. So,
all right.
What are there any other things that you say? When you think of success and using partnerships like Zion, what's been some items that you've enjoyed, or with any integrator really? It doesn't have to be Zion, but where's been success come from using other partners? What do you think are some of the keys to success, and what's made the biggest difference in your career of working with good partnerships?
Yeah, I think it comes back to that defining expectations and communication. Things are going to change. Things are going to not go as originally described and requested. And so that's, you could point to 100 different reasons as to why things are working or not working, whether that's in the 3PL model, whether that's in the integration component of the automation, or whether that's something the customer did. So having that truly open line of communication, and maintaining a partnership, calm mindset when you're interacting with each other, is always a way to get through problems and solution things together. You'll find people more collaborative that way. And don't get me wrong, there's times when you come across people or situations where you have to get out the contract and say, this is what it said. But it doesn't always have to come to that level, right? And if you're really truly building a partnership with the people that you're doing business with, then you're going to find a lot more success that way, across the entire channel of that supply chain, from fulfillment, from shipping from overseas into the U.S. or back out, or the automation providers, or the customers you select, and those things. So I think that's the critical piece: is set expectations, open lines of communications, and then have a partnership mindset, whenever you need to on modifications, and if things aren't going well, and you'll grow your business that way.
Gotcha. Awesome.
And that has nothing to do with automation.
That's right.
No, it really does. I mean, we started with this, right? We're looking at some automation projects, but we certainly started in a different capacity, more of an advisory role, how we can help with a few things. And I think you hit on some basic stuff. I mean, Zion's brand promises are to try to provide a memorable experience, to guide intelligent change, which means if you don't need automation and you need racking, or you don't need anything, or you just need a system change, like guide intelligent change. And then we don't want a B team. We don't want to give you a B team. We want to always give you our A team and make you feel like you've got it. So we appreciate you, Lee. We appreciate you letting us in. We appreciate you letting us grow on your journey and your all's transformation. It's been very enjoyable. We look for much more success into the future, and that portion of it's done. So
all right,
we come to the fun question portion. Jordan, you got one of the fun questions you want to throw at him, or you want me to pick?
I don't have it up. You go for it.
You don't have one up? All right, let's see, Lee. Let me pick here. If it's too heavy, just say next. What was your dream job growing up, and did that affect your passions or the job that you ended up in? So did you have something you thought you were going to do coming? Some people know right out of high school. I wasn't that guy. Like, I've just kind of ended up where I ended up. But did you have a dream job? How did that affect the job you're in today?
I wish I had a picture of me from college. You'd be like, holy cow, that guy would never go down to that career path. I played a little college football as an offensive lineman. But I started off as a computer science major in college, and my dream job was actually to go into like NASA and get it. I've always been, kind of, a bit of a nerd. I think you kind of, as a lineman, you kind of inherit that as a trait. You're a protector, you're a nerd and stuff like that, because you got to read defenses and all that. But I started off as a computer science major, and so my goal is to end up in somewhere in the space programs or something like that. Being a big offensive lineman, they're not going to stick you in a shuttle or in a rocket and launch you into space. There's a little bit, a few physical disadvantages to that. But what it did was, I went from a computer science major into some business and accounting and finance and stuff. And so it really kind of gave me a technology based center, from an education standpoint, that kind of unbeknownst to me at the time, really set me up for what I ended up doing in the future. And being heavily involved in a global supply chain, but it created that analytical mindset and those things. So I went from wanting to be a NASA engineer or astronaut or whatever to, hey, what's the next best thing? Well, you know what, we've installed. We've transported things to help launch spaceships. We've done, we're working on projects where we're installing base stations for cell towers that are actually feeding off of the satellites, the SpaceX satellites and stuff like that. So you do still get involved in some of that cool nerdy stuff. But that was kind of my desire, and then just kind of like you, just life and faith and stuff like that just pushed me down this path, and it's been super enjoyable to do that because like I've been all over the world, fortunate, lived in China and Brazil and stuff, and met people from all walks of life, and I think that my open mindset of being flexible has really helped that out with that piece of it. But if there's still an opportunity to get on a space shuttle somewhere, they don't even use space shuttles anymore, but something like that, man, I'm in.
Yeah.
So when Branson or Bezos or Elon one figures out how somebody can get into space when it becomes affordable for us regular folk, then you're in.
Yeah, I'm there. To me, it's just such a vast. Can you imagine setting up supply chain between different universes?
There you go. Right.
It's an
So there you go.
Right.
There you go. Whole new set of challenges. Well, Lee, listen, we appreciate you. We appreciate you as a customer. We appreciate you as a friend and just what you've done and getting to know you better. And thank you for spending some time with us. We're going to wrap up the show here in just a little bit, and we greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate you guys and the partnership we've had. It's been extremely beneficial for me professionally, from the different things we've done together, but also with our customers and helping us grow our business and really showing in a professional, highly capable manner. So, Jordan mentioned or Jim, one of you guys mentioned the A team. I guess I'll go pump up Chip and tell him he's part of the A team finally.
Don't do that.
No,
we don't need that. Jordan already's heard enough today that we're going to have yeah.
Chip's on the varsity squad this week.
That's right.
We'll let him go there.
That's good. Chip should be back soon from a pretty amazing vacation. So,
yeah.
Lee, thank you. TZE audience, that's a wrap. We appreciate you all. We'll talk to all of you soon.
Thanks guys. Lee. Take care.
We want to thank you all for listening to another episode of the Zion Experience. Please make sure you subscribe to our show on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcast. If you have any ideas or topics you'd love to hear about, or maybe for a future episode, please let us know. Send us something in the comments. We appreciate you all, and we'll see you here next time.